Okay, for our next color from our summer edition of our Make Your Own Polish recipes, we are going to show you how to create a beautiful, gorgeous, summery, bright turquoise. So as with all of our colors, you're going to start with 10 mils of base. And for this specific color, I do want to make sure that my formula is more opaque than translucent. So I know I'm going to have to add a certain amount of white to get to that. And then how we make our turquoise, depending on if we want it to be more green or more blue, or that will affect the ratio of our yellow versus blue additions. So I'm gonna first start with equal parts blue and yellow. I'm gonna do 1 drop of each. Again, you wanna make sure that you are documenting this on your recipe card and being very careful when you're adding your drops. So you can see I have 1 of each here. When you mix these together, they'll start to make green. Just to give you a good idea of what each of them does in your base. And so that's a perfect green base to get us started. So I'm just writing down what we have in here so far. 10 ml of base. And we keep track of our drops with hash marks. So I'll just show this to you really quick on your recipe card. And we have our 10 mils of base. So I know that this is going to need much more blue than it is yellow, or at least double blue versus yellow. So I'm going to go ahead and add 2 drops of blue. And 1 drop of yellow. And before I start stirring, I'm not sure if that was a full drop of yellow. So after we see where, we'll just double check that after we start mixing. It's always a good idea to keep your mixing cup right in the center of the circle. And keep an eye out for it so you know where it is. And you can help yourself prevent spills by moving it around to other areas. We've seen that happen a few times. Okay, so you can see I'm getting close to the color that I want. And to really bring this out and to also get the opacity that I'm looking for, I'm gonna be adding white. So I'm gonna start with 3 drops of white. You can start with 1 if you want, and we always recommend that until you're sure about what color you're making, just do 1 drop, just do a little bit at a time so you can see where you're at. This will give you a good idea about what will, or how the color will change when you add those. And this is the color, or very close to the color that I wanted. My only problem now at this stage is that it's too transparent. But since it's the shade I want, but not the opacity, what I'm going to do is add the exact same ratios of liquid concentrate so that it will double the opacity. So if I'm looking at my recipe card here, I have 3 blues, 2 yellows, and 3 whites so far. So I am going to add all of those again, and then you're going to be able to see how the opacity changes. So here we go. And this will basically double the opacity. So 1, that was a big one, 2, 3. So if that 1 drop was a little bit too big for my blue, I can always compensate for that. But since I'm not sure yet, I am going to just follow along with what I'm doing. and adding the drops. And then 3 white. Oh, a little extra on the last one, so but let me add this back to my recipe card. And I went ahead and wrote down that extra little drop that came out from the white, just so I know what was in there, even if I do have to overcompensate for it a little bit at the end. Okay, so this is actually just a tiny bit darker than what I wanted, so I'm gonna end up adding more white anyways, but let's just compare the color from the last one that I did. Okay. So I want to go a little bit more back to here, but I am glad that I cannot see the black line as clearly. So I'm going to add 2 drops of white and then check the opacity, and then hopefully this will compensate for the really big drop of blue that I had. And I think that did exactly what I wanted it to do. But as I'm looking at this, I can see that it's still just a little too translucent. So this is the iterative process of making your own polish. You test, you add, especially when you're creating something brand new. I am again going to double what my recipe, or add again what I just doubled my recipe to. So my base recipe was a 3, 2, 3 addition from what I originally put in there to create my original shade. So I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to do 3 blues, okay, I'm going to do 2 yellows, and then I'm going to do 3 whites. And I didn't want this to have any shimmer in it, so that's why I'm not adding the pigments, because I can clearly see the shimmers in the pigments. Even though I can achieve those pigment colors on my own with the liquid concentrates, they do add a different depth, but I'm not really looking for that with this color. We're getting pretty close here. I'm gonna lighten it up with just a little bit more white. I'm gonna add 2 more drops of white. I think that's about perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start bottling this. Before I do that, I'm going to give it one really good stir now that I can see it up close. And it's always a good idea to just double check that, make sure everything that's thoroughly mixed, because once it's in your bottle, you really can't mix it. You can shake it as much as you want, but the great mixing happens before it actually goes in your bottle. And again, you want to fill it up to the shoulder and not to the neck of the bottle where the threads are. And you can make sure you just get all your polish by helping it all go down in the funnel. Drip it all down there and then replace your cap. And here is my summer turquoise color.